Hello and welcome to Hardcore Brawnography's Top 5 Comics of 2016. As with my other top 5s of the year, doesn't matter whether or not these comics were published in 2016, just that I read them in 2016. And it doesn't matter whether it's a single issue, an ongoing series, a mini-series, a graphic novel, just know that these are my top 5 comics of 2016. Number 5. I tend to find annuals of long-running series, like Batman here, to be more of a filler issue. They're designed for people to be able to pick up and read if you've not been reading the title up to date, which can be not quite as interesting as being part of a bigger story arc. But then, along came this year's Batman annual. Off the back of some not massively strong Batman stories that we've had since DC Rebirth, this was a real surprise to me, and I mean that in an absolutely fantastic way. I was not expecting this annual full of holiday-themed short stories to entertain me, but it really did. And on a side note, I know that a lot of people think that Batman has been amazing since DC Rebirth, which is an opinion I respect. It's just the stories haven't truly gripped me yet. I loved all the stories in this annual. My favourite was probably the first one, the story about Ace the Bat Hound and how he came into being. But there's also the Harley and Batman story written by Paul Dini. It's amazing how many writers can't capture Harley's voice, but Paul Dini can. He really can. It's brilliantly written. Basically, I just thought this was a really good single issue. This is how you do it, DC. Pay attention. Do this more. Number 4. Green Lantern's one of my favourite superheroes, and when I say Green Lantern, I do usually mean the Green Lantern Corps, because different lanterns are more entertaining in different stories. That's just the way it is. Don't get me wrong, I love the main Green Lantern book. It did feel a little bit like it was starting to tread water just before Rebirth, and after Rebirth it's been replaced by Green Lanterns, a title that is consistently not quite as good as I think it should be. But this Green Lantern Corps miniseries, which is a sequel to the miniseries from last year, The Lost Army, was a fantastic read and the best Green Lantern themed thing I have read all year. With the Lanterns stuck in a different universe, courtesy of an as yet unspecified plot device, we get to see how John Stewart, Guy Gardner, Simon Baz, Kilowog and the rest deal with the problems in that universe while also trying to find their way home. It's packed with excitement, great characters and a great plot, so why wouldn't you pick it up? I'm sure it's been collected in trade paperback now, so it's probably even easier to get hold of. Buy it, read it, you will not be disappointed. Number 3. I freaking love Back to the Future. Back to the Future 2 is one of my favourite films ever made, so when this comic series was announced, I was all over it. And when it started last year, the first story arc was good. It was interweaving little bits of backstory, little bits of untold tales within the film's continuity, which was fine, but it didn't really feel like it was moving forward. And then came this arc, the Continuum Conundrum arc, and oh boy is that a good one. It tells a new story, moving forward, and it does it in a very Back to the Future kind of way. If you had a substandard team working on a Back to the Future comic, every arc would probably be Doc and Marty go back in time, or forward in time, or to a different time period. They cause a problem, they fix the problem, they come home, nothing has changed, the end. But this doesn't do that. This book expands upon Marty's present, and it's amazing for that reason. Everything is interlinked. It's not just travel away, have an adventure, come back to life. It's about his life, and it's brilliant. It's a continuation of the universe that I love so much, and I can't get enough of it. This is still ongoing, this series. Pick it up from your comic book shop. Put it on your pull list. Read it next year. It's amazing. I mean, the art style's fantastic as well. I don't want to take away from that, but the stories are just so... they're brilliant. Number 2. Web Warriors is funny. It's very rare that a comic is funny. It's very rare that I read a comic and laugh. This makes me do it. Yes, I'm being fussy because strictly speaking I think it was issues 1 and 2 last year, so let's take them away. But this lot, this was this year, and this was amazing. Marvel Comics and I have a very love-hate relationship. I'm much more of a DC fan. I'm much more likely to pick up a DC series. But I think Marvel do event comics better. They're big, universe-shattering events. I always find more satisfying than DC's, generally speaking. But it's very rare that I buy an ongoing series from Marvel. But when Web Warriors came out, I bought issue 1 because I was genuinely intrigued. Read it, loved it, put it on my pull list, and read it avidly throughout the run. Web Warriors, for those of you who don't know, is about a group of Spider-Men from across parallel universes who have come together to make sure that the multiverse stays stable. And yes, that's as great as it sounds. Any comic that has Spider-Ham in a starring role, and yes, Spider-Ham is Spider-Man, except he's a pig, that comic should be read and adored forever. Each arc was great, the characters were exciting, and overall it just felt new and interesting. So Marvel cancelled it after 11 issues. Honourable mentions. All-Star Batman. Scott Snyder continues to tell his own brand of Bat stories. Doesn't quite feel like it's got going again yet, but it is really entertaining and really different in tone to the other Batman books out there, so I recommend it. Clerks, the comic book. Okay, so I'm a bit late to the party with this one, but I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, and I saw this in the pound box at my local comic book shop, so I had to have it. And if you like Kevin Smith, if you like Clerks, it's exactly what you imagine. It's Clerks on the page. It's hilarious. There's also a holiday special, which I got as well. Also good. I devoured both other Dirk Gently mini-series when they came out, because they were good. And I've only read issue 1 of this one so far, because 2 and 3 are on back order for me at my comic shop. But seriously, so far, this was the most gripping of the 3. Pick it up. Number 1. DC Rebirth. Probably not a huge surprise for those of you who know me, I'm a huge DC fan, but this was a big question mark until the middle of 2016 when it came out. DC announced Rebirth without really telling anyone what it was. It was a new start, but it wasn't a reboot. It was going to revitalise things without changing things. It was going to be a way of bringing back the legacy of heroes that had been lost when DC launched the New 52. But how was it going to do it? I had no idea. And I had no idea what this issue would be like when I started reading it. And then I read it, and then I lost my mind. Rebirth basically kind of undoes a bunch of stuff that DC's last big timeline-altering event, Flashpoint, did. Flashpoint gave birth to the New 52, a DC universe where histories were compressed, legacies forgotten, and an awful lot of heroes just kind of vanished off into nowhere, never to be seen again. And one of those characters that vanished was the often-loved third Flash, Wally West. But he's back, and he's the star of this comic. Wally's been outside of the universe since Flashpoint occurred, and is trying to get back into the universe to warn people of the outside interference that caused these changes to the timelines, because it turns out it wasn't the Flashpoint event at all that was to blame. And without taking you through the book step by step, I mean, if you've read it, you've read it. If you haven't, I don't want to spoil it for you if you're going to. But I will say that the reveal of the outside force that has been manipulating the DC Universe history is so jaw-dropping I had to read it twice. If you liked, or think you might like DC Comics, pick up Rebirth. It's my best comic of 2016. So that's my top 5 comics of 2016. I hope you enjoyed it. Come back soon. I still haven't done my films of 2016 and my games of 2016, and they're coming over in the next few days, so stay tuned.